Chapter 1681. Jian Wushuang and Soaring Heaven King Palace. Real God Ziyi died long ago. I killed him. However, he was pretty good. Before he died, he cornered me into a desperate situation, and the space that I was in was sealed off from the outside world entirely. I couldn't send any message for you to come and rescue me, but I could rely on my own capabilities. However, I am lucky enough to be able to survive and escape from a desperate situation alive. Jian Wushuang smiled. Is that so? Hall Master Yuan creased his eyebrows. He knew Jian Wushuang's character well. If even Jian Wushuang had said it was a desperate situation, the encounter must be beyond imagination. Regardless, it's great that you managed to escape. I, and all experts from Lineage of Star, can finally let out a breath of relief. Hall Master Yuan smiled. Oh yeah, where are you exactly? Let me send the experts from Lineage of Star over immediately to escort you back. Escort? Jian Wushuang refused. There's no need. I can come back on my own. There's no need. Jian Wushuang, I'm afraid you do not know what kind of situation you are in now. Hall Master Yuan smiled faintly. Why? Jian Wushuang couldn't help but ask. 100 years ago, when you were after real God Ziyi in the core region, it spread across wildfire and it stirred a hubbub. Many higher-ups in Soaring Heaven King Palace were notified, especially when you and real God Ziyi disappeared. Soaring Heaven King Palace was furious too. They immediately sent many experts to the 8th layer to search for you and real God Ziyi. They continued to do that for 100 years and they never stopped. On the contrary, Soaring Heaven King Palace sent more and more experts. They even paid a great price to hire some top chaotic real gods. Their intentions are, firstly, they had a string of hope that real God Ziyi might not have been dead. Secondly, to kill me? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. I'm glad you know that. From the hunt back then, real God Ziyi should be dead from the desperate situation. However, although you were lost, you were most likely not dead. Soaring Heaven King Palace has been barbaric all this while. You continuously killed 2 of their chaotic real gods. Why would they let you off the hook? Hall Master Yuan smirked coldly. Hence, it's best that you find a place to hide for now and wait until the experts from Lineage of Star arrive. Over the years, we of Lineage of Star have also sent many experts to the 8th layer to look for you. Although not as many as Soaring Heaven King Palace, as long as they are with you, it shouldn't be that easy for Soaring Heaven King Palace to kill you. I see. Jian Wushuang smiled. He understood what Hall Master Yuan meant, but he replied with a smile. Hall Master Yuan, you don't have to go through the trouble. I can return on my own. Jian Wushuang, you. Hall Master Yuan was shocked. Hall Master Yuan, I have something that I have yet to tell you. During the time when I was in a desperate situation, I broke through and became an eternal real god, Jian Wushuang said. Broke through? Hall Master Yuan was surprised. He knew that it didn't take long for Jian Wushuang to break through from universe god to void real god. It was at most a few hundred years. In such a short period, he broke through from being a void real god to become an eternal real god. How did he progress so quickly? Jian Wushuang, are you really confident? Hall Master Yuan was uncertain. Of course, the current me is not someone who could be dealt with so easily, Jian Wushuang said confidently. If so, all right then. However, if you were to fight with the experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace, I would still let the surrounding experts from Lineage of Star move in your direction, Hall Master Yuan said. Sure. Jian Wushuang nodded. After texting with Hall Master Yuan, Jian Wushuang let out a breath. He suddenly looked at the end of the boundless dark void. Soaring Heaven King Palace, I hoped that you'd be wiser. Otherwise. There was boundless chill soaring in Jian Wushuang's eyes. In the boundless, dark void, there was cold aura. In a dark land, there were over 20 star demons gathered. Suddenly, there was a silver flowing light that plunged into the star demons like a bolt of lightning. Then, a massacre took place. Over 20 star demons were wiped out by the silver flowing light in an instant. The silver flowing light dispersed and revealed a cold-looking elder in silver armor. There was dim light in the cold-looking elder's eyes. He had a smile plastered across his face, but his smile was malicious. Shi Yu, you are pretty carefree. You have the intention to kill these star demons. a red-robed figure appeared next to the cold-looking elder from nowhere. The red-robed figure belonged to a handsome young man. The two of them were top chaotic real gods. We have been searching for more than 100 years, but we have never seen real god Ziyi and Jian Wushuang. I reckon that both of them already met death together. It would be a waste of time if we continued to search for them. I might as well spend some time on hunting star demons. The demon cores are good, the cold-looking elder said. Humph, don't forget that Soaring Heaven King Palace hired you at a great price. It's not right for you to hunt star demons. The red-robed handsome man's voice was cold. Don't worry. Only hunting a few star demons won't interrupt our main goal, the elder said. The red-robed handsome man couldn't say anything more. Just then, the cold-looking elder's face suddenly grew solemn. Someone's here. The red-robed handsome man immediately noticed, and his eyes looked to the void afar at the first instant. There was a figure plunging over slowly. He looked handsome and extremely young. He was in crimson robe and there was a sword on his back. There was no power, but he let out the aura of an expert at all times. The originally carefree cold-looking elder and the red-robed handsome man saw the incomer and their eyes dilated in shock. This outfit, this appearance, it's Jian Wushuang. It's him. Hallmaster, I found Jian Wushuang. He's alive. He is near me. The red-robed handsome man immediately exclaimed in surprise. At the same time, he instantly sent a message to Soaring Heaven King Palace. We finally found him and happened to be found by us. The cold-looking elder looked delighted. Let's go. The red-robed handsome man's eyes shimmered with joy. At the very next moment, the two figures plunged out and instantly appeared in the void before Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, who was traveling forward, could feel the two of them approaching, and he immediately stopped his steps and looked up. So fast? Jian Wushuang smirked and formed a malicious smile. Jian Wushuang, I finally found you. The red-robed handsome man and the cold-looking elder glared at Jian Wushuang, and their eyes boiled with rage. Chapter 1682. Show Dignity. 1 is real god Cheng Qian from Soaring Heaven King Palace. As for the other one, Jian Wushuang looked at the other cold-looking elder and squinted his eyes. The resentment between Soaring Heaven King Palace and I have nothing to do with you, real god Shi Yu. It really had nothing to do with me. However, Soaring Heaven King Palace paid a great price and I'm really interested in you, an inverse cultivator. The cold-looking real god Shi Yu smiled maliciously. Is that so? Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. It seems that the fight between Soaring Heaven King Palace and I is inevitable regardless. That's funny. You killed two chaotic real gods from Soaring Heaven King Palace. For that incident alone, you deserve to die. The red-robed handsome man, real god Cheng Qian roared. I deserve to die. I will wait then. Jian Wushuang didn't care. As he spoke, there was a fierce aura that soared from his body. Real god Cheng Qian's face changed. Something's not right. Why? Real god Shi Yu asked. His aura. It's an aura that an eternal real god would have. Jian Wushuang already broke through and became an eternal real god. Real god Cheng Qian exclaimed in surprise. What? Real god Shi Yu was shocked too. From what they knew, Jian Wushuang had only broken through and become a void real god not too long ago. Just how many years had it been since he had already reached the level of eternal real god? Previously, he was only a void real god and he could kill real god Ziyi. Now that he has broken through again, his power has definitely increased tremendously. He might be able to compare favorably with experts on real god ranking list. With just the two of us, we can't do anything about him. Let us retreat for now. When the other experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace arrive, hem him in and kill him together, real god Cheng Qian said. Real god Shi Yu looked unhappy. Although he was upset, he nodded heavily. He wasn't stupid either, and he wouldn't make fun of his own life. Retreat. The two top chaotic real god immediately retreated, and they obviously wanted to give up the idea to fight Jian Wushuang. But, just as they turned and wanted to leave, the two of you don't need to run. A cold voice suddenly resounded in their heads. Real god Cheng Qian and real god Shi Yu looked at everything in front of them in shock. They saw that Jian Wushuang, who was originally far away from them, had taken one leap and appeared in front of them like a bolt of lightning, leaving countless shadows behind him. This speed! Real God Cheng Tian and real God Shi Jiyu were astonished. At that very moment, Jian Wushuang lifted his hand. He didn't draw his sword but merely punched them. Rumble! It was a simple punch, but it contained an extremely terrifying diving power, and it continued to magnify itself in front of them. The divine power alone made the two top chaotic real gods quiver in fear. There was an unprecedented terror in their eyes, and they tried their best to withstand it. Then, they made a final struggle and performed their attacks, but they were still suppressed by the punch. In the end, they could only watch as Jian Wushuang's fist swung at them. Hall Master, Jian Wushuang. Real God Cheng Tian didn't even send one a complete message in time. Bang! Bang! The fist was magnified by a few folds. Then, it landed on both real God Cheng Tian and real God Shigu's heads at the same time. Instantly, both of their heads popped. The two top chaotic real god instantly died. Divine power comparable favorably with an almighty. It's pretty easy to kill an ordinary chaotic real god. Jian Wushuang looked at the two cold dead bodies that fell as a smile spread across his face. He didn't use any skill on purpose with the earlier punch, merely his own divine power. He had merely suppressed them using his divine power, and the two top chaotic real gods had been eliminated. That was the huge difference in power between an almighty and a chaotic real god. As the two real gods saw me, I was definite that they sent my location to Soaring Heaven King Palace. It seems that, in no time, there'll be other experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace here soon. Jian Wushuang smiled as he took all the treasures from the two real gods into his own Qian Kuan ring. Soaring Heaven King Palace. Come on. Soaring Heaven King Palace, in a lofty palace. Real God Cheng Tian sent a message. They saw Jian Wushuang. Soaring Heaven King Palace Master, that's great. I finally found that son of a BTCH. They found Jian Wushuang. How about Ziyi? The higher-ups of Soaring Heaven King Palace in the hall became anxious. Real God Cheng Tian only saw Jian Wushuang but didn't see Ziyi around. If I'm not mistaken, Ziyi should have passed. A golden-robed man who looked cold raged furiously. Jian Wushuang killed two chaotic real gods from Soaring Heaven King Palace. Regardless, he has to die. Send down my command. All experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace must immediately rush to where real God Cheng Tian is. Yes. There was someone who took the order immediately to send down his command. Hold on. The golden-robed man suddenly waved, and there was anger in his eyes. He had received the incomplete message that real God Cheng Tian had sent before he had died. Real God Cheng Tian has already died. Besides, real God Shi Jiyu, who was with him in the 8th lair, should be dead too, the golden-robed man said in a low voice. What? The higher-ups of Soaring Heaven King Palace who were standing at a lower platform were angry. Real God Cheng Tian and real God Shi Jiyu were both top chaotic real gods. With the two of them joining forces, unless one was an expert that possessed fighting power of an expert on Real God ranking list, it would definitely be impossible for him to kill two of them in such a short period of time. Jian Wushuang possibly already possesses the fighting power of one on the real God ranking list. Maybe he has other experts around him who have the fighting power of one on the real God ranking list, the golden-robed man said coldly. Send my command down. Tell all experts of Soaring Heaven King Palace to not take action recklessly before gathering enough power. Do not fight with Jian Wushuang. Even if Jian Wushuang takes the initiative to find them, try to avoid him. Wait until we gather a formation that is sufficient to kill him, then we will hem him in. Also, tell Han Quan to return from the 6th lair and head over to the 8th lair together to kill Jian Wushuang. And, tell them that from real God Jiyu Ying to real God Ziyi, and now real God Cheng Tian, we Soaring Heaven King Palace has 3 chaotic real gods that died in Jian Wushuang's hands. It is a great humiliation to Soaring Heaven King Palace. If Jian Wushuang doesn't die, where will Soaring Heaven King Palace's dignity be? Hence, in the next fight, not only should we kill Jian Wushuang, we also have to show our dignity. We have to let Sanctuary Alliance and all forces in Eternal Chaotic World know what is the outcome of offending Soaring Heaven King Palace. In the fight, no matter what kind of obstacle we run into, with the involvement of experts from Lineage of Star, we should hold no scruples and kill everyone. Chapter 1683. Great movement. Soaring Heaven King Palace Master sent down his command, and it instantly stirred up a great commotion in Soaring Heaven King Palace. Especially the last part of Soaring Heaven King Palace's speech. Regardless of the intervention, have no scruples, kill them all. He had even highlighted Lineage of Star in his command. Soaring Heaven King Palace obviously wanted to establish their dignity in the fight. As they intended to do so, they had to show everyone. Hence, they had sent the command without covering up and spread it directly. It spread to Thunderbolt Island as well as the entire Sanctuary Alliance. It instantly caused a hubbub in Sanctuary Alliance. To kill the #1 genius from Lineage of Star without having any scruples? Even if the experts from Lineage of Star get involved, kill them all? Soaring Heaven King Palace is trying to start a fight with Lineage of Star. They are definitely starting a fight. Jian Wushuang is Lineage of Star's precious one. Lineage of Star wouldn't let anything happen to him. They definitely will send a bunch of experts to rescue him. By then, they definitely would fight with Soaring Heaven King Palace directly. Soaring Heaven King Palace is very strong. However, ever since Lineage of Star got the 2 white blaze fruit trees, their foundation and power haven't been much weaker than Soaring Heaven King Palace's. If the 2 overlords were to fight with one another, TSK, that'd be interesting. Countless top experts from all forces of Sanctuary Alliance found out about the news as well. Everyone was looking forward to the fight. Among Sanctuary Alliance, there were great forces that had gotten into war because of their disputes. It was very common. There were even times when forces had been exterminated from it. All forces in Sanctuary Alliance were used to it since long ago. Now, they were just watching the 2 overlords. In the core region of the 8th layer. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. As soon as the experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace, who were scattered around the core region looking for Jian Wushuang, received the command, they rushed over to the location of Real God Cheng Qian immediately. Plus, they were informed about Real God Cheng Qian and Real God Shigu's deaths. Hence, they were taking action in groups, very cautiously. In the void, there were 3 figures plunging forward. The 3 of them were top chaotic real gods. There was one that had come from Soaring Heaven King Palace. As for the other 2, they were solo experts hired by Soaring Heaven King Palace. In Eternal Chaotic World, there were many powerful solo experts who were unafraid of all forces. As long as the price offered was high enough, they wouldn't even care if they had to offend other major forces. After all, it wouldn't be that easy if the major forces wanted to kill them as well. Then, in order to kill Jian Wushuang, Soaring Heaven King Palace had hired more than 10 solo experts. The 3 people who were plunging forward at high speed suddenly stopped. A grey-robed old lady who was in the middle turned to look in the dark void behind. I wonder who are the few that have been tailing the 3 of us? What's the purpose? The grey-robed old lady looked fragile, but her voice was bright and contained power that spread in all directions. Then, the experts who followed the 3 of them never revealed themselves, but there was a burst of laughter. Old monster Xianxia, we don't want to do anything. We just want to watch. After all, we don't know where Jian Wushuang is. We can only find him if we follow you. Yeah, go ahead with yours. We will not get involved in the fight between you and Lineage of Star. A fight between Soaring Heaven King Palace and Lineage of Star. It's a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. We don't want to miss it. The grey-robed old lady squinted her eyes when she heard the laughter. If everyone is really here to watch, go ahead and follow us. Let me say this first, if any of you think of getting involved when the fight starts, Soaring Heaven King Palace won't let any of you off the hook, the grey-robed old lady said. Then, she turned to continue to rush her journey. Xianxia, wouldn't it be too great of a move that Soaring Heaven King Palace is pulling? An expert who was flying alongside the grey-robed lady asked casually. Soaring Heaven King Palace is trying to show dignity. Naturally, the more spectators the merrier, the other person said with a smirk. Stop joking. We are nearing the location of Jian Wushuang. By then, we'll rely heavily on the 2 of you, the grey-robed old lady said. Don't you worry about it. As the 2 of us agreed to help Soaring Heaven King Palace, we will naturally give our best shot. The 2 of them agreed heartily. Then, Soaring Heaven King Palace took the initiative to attack, and it spread like wildfire in Sanctuary Alliance. Those experts who were wandering in the 8th layer naturally knew about it too. Hence, they purposely rushed over as well. Plus, there were many pairs of eyes in Sanctuary Alliance who were watching the upcoming fight closely. The fight could be said to be a public attraction. In boundless darkness, there was a barren land with no signs of life. Jian Wushuang didn't opt to plunge into the void but walked step by step on the land. He walked very slowly. It had been a few days since he had killed real god Cheng Qian and real god Shi Ji Yu. Over the past few days, he had walked for less than 10,000 miles. It was as though he didn't move at all but was waiting for strong opponents to come by. In actual fact, he was really waiting for the experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace. Jian Wushuang, my friend, the movement that you have caused is extraordinary. There was an expert from Soaring Heaven King Palace who sent me a message earlier. They offered me a great price for me to assist them to kill you. Honestly, Soaring Heaven King Palace lives up to their reputation as a top major force. They were very generous in their offer, even I was very tempted. Haha, Brother Peng Hu, did you agree with them? Jian Wushuang and real god Peng Hu were chatting casually. Don't you know me yet? I never make trouble with anyone else. Even if there are benefits, I would never offend anyone for no reason. Plus, we are friends to begin with. Why would I fight with you for some offered benefits? Real god Peng Hu laughed. That's a pity. I thought I would have a chance to fight Brother Peng Hu, Jian Wushuang joked. You want to fight with me? Head to Thunderbolt Island and we can do that. By then, we can even catch up over a drink. Real god Peng Hu was very enthusiastic. No problem. Jian Wushuang nodded but he suddenly paused. Brother Peng Hu, talk to you later. The experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace have found me, Jian Wushuang replied. Be careful. Soaring Heaven King Palace aren't nice people to offend, real god Peng Hu exhorted. They aren't nice, but I am not either. Jian Wushuang smiled coldly. Then, he cut off his connection with real god Peng Hu. On the land in darkness, Jian Wushuang lifted his eyes and looked in one direction. His soul power had already detected the 3 approaching auras from the direction. The 3 auras belonged to 3 top chaotic real gods. Chapter 1684. Formation. The experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace have learned their lessons. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. The 3 top chaotic real gods who appeared within the coverage of his soul power stopped nearby but didn't come nearer to fight with him. It was obvious that they intended to wait for more experts to gather. When they had a stronger formation, they'd attack him. Jian Wushuang couldn't be bothered. He pretended that he didn't notice the 3 experts and continued to move forward slowly. As time passed, there were more and more experts that appeared around Jian Wushuang. The experts who were from Soaring Heaven King Palace and those who were hired by Soaring Heaven King Palace made a total of 7. A total of 7 top chaotic real god and 2 had the power of 1 who was extremely close in fighting power of 1 on the real god ranking list. Such a formation was very strong. However, Soaring Heaven King Palace wasn't in a hurry to attack him. Jian Wushuang, real god Huan Yu and I are nearby. There was suddenly a message. Oh, real god Duan Yang. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Real god Duan Yang and real god Huan Yu were 2 tops chaotic real gods in Lineage of Star. When the experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace were approaching Jian Wushuang, the experts from Lineage of Star naturally followed. However, in terms of formation, the difference was vast. It wasn't because there was a vast difference between Lineage of Star and Soaring Heaven King Palace but because Lineage of Star didn't pay a great price to hire experts for help. Hall Master Yuan wanted to do so but Jian Wushuang had rejected him. We are doomed. Soaring Heaven King Palace has already gathered 7 top chaotic real gods around himself. Even an expert on real god ranking list has to avoid such a team formation. The 3 of us won't be able to match evenly, real god Duan Yang said in a low voice. Maybe, Jian Wushuang nodded faintly. Jian Wushuang, these experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace came for you. Why don't you look anxious at all? Real god Duan Yang was shocked at his calmness. It will eventually come anyway. What's the use of being anxious? Jian Wushuang smiled but didn't care. You're so positive, real god Duan Yang pouted but suddenly. There were suddenly 3 more fierce auras that popped into the range of Jian Wushuang's soul power coverage. The 3 auras quickly gathered with the other 7 experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace. Another 3? Real God Du and Yang was shocked. SHT. Real God Huan Yu looked solemn. Previously, there were only 7 top chaotic real gods and they were already far beyond what we could withstand. But now, there are another 3. A total of 10 top chaotic real gods. Among them, there are 2 who are extremely close to real god ranking list. This team formation is terrifying. Jian Wushuang, hurry up and run. Huan Yu and I will try our best to help you, Real God Du and Yang said. I will perform Heart of Sea region in collaboration with Realm Treasure. I should be able to hold them back for a while. You seize the chance, Real God Huan Yu said. The 2 real gods were obviously anxious. Actually, you don't have to. Jian Wushuang had yet to finish his sentence. They are going to attack. Real God Du and Yang's gaze fixed. In the dark void before Jian Wushuang, the 10 figures flew over at the same time at an extremely fast speed. The aura of the 10 figures was shockingly strong. The moment one moves, he immediately attracted the attention of the experts in the surrounding void. They are attacking. Soaring Heaven King Palace is finally attacking. They gathered a total of 10 top chaotic real gods before they attack. Soaring Heaven King Palace is cautious. Among the 10 top chaotic real gods, there are 2 who are extremely close to real god ranking list. Such a team formation. Even if a true expert on real god ranking list came across this formation, I reckon he could only turn and flee. The experts that had gathered in the nearby void to watch were getting excited. They followed the experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace to watch the fight. They want to witness a top geniuses passing with their own eyes. In the dark void, the top chaotic real gods from Soaring Heaven King Palace appeared in the void before Jian Wushuang and they let out a billowing murderous intention. Jian Wushuang, you have to die. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In the terrifying explosion noise, there was boundless divine might that pressed at Jian Wushuang. However, before they could get close to Jian Wushuang, there was suddenly a lady in white that appeared before Jian Wushuang. The lady in white was graceful. She held a sword in her left hand and a unique compass in her right hand. Heart of Sea region. Whirling world. Rumble. Sea water in jade green swept out and flooded the universe. Instantly, it formed billowing waves that were tens of thousand zhong tall. The billowing waves lapped and covered the 10 experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace. That is Real God Huan Yu from Lineage of Star. Real God Du and Yang is here too. The 2 of them want to stop us so that Jian Wushuang will have a chance to flee. Humph. Dream on. Palace Master commanded that we hold no scruples. As the experts from Lineage of Star dare to get involved, we will kill them all together. Die. The 10 top chaotic real god took out their divine weapons simultaneously. At the same time, there were various auras that spread out. Some were like scorching hot flames, others like sturdy mountains. There were even some who wielded their huge axes and slashed the first 10,000 tall waves that swept at them. Jian Wushuang, let's hurry up and leave. Real God Du and Yang roared. Real God Huan Yu and he wanted to flee at first instant. The 2 of them had never thought of fighting head-on with the 10 top chaotic real god. That was simply courting death. However, just as they prepared to leave, Jian Wushuang, who stood on the dark land, suddenly lifted his head and his cold eyes let out 2 substantiated lights as he looked at the 10 top chaotic real gods. Suddenly, there was an instant murderous intention that soared up. Swoosh! A ghostly figure burst out and left behind countless shadows in the void. The ghostly figure pierced Sea of Heart region that Real God Huan Yu performed and appeared before the 10 top chaotic real gods. The sight shocked the experts at the scene, including those experts who were watching in the dark. They were all astonished. Everyone could tell that Real God Huan Yu had performed Sea of Heart region and Whirling World with his all in order to create a chance for Jian Wushuang to flee and survive. Everyone thought so, including Real God Huan Yu and Real God Du and Yang themselves. But in the end, Jian Wushuang didn't run away but barged out alone. He came before the 10 top chaotic real gods. Chapter 1685, 10 Real Gods Jian Wushuang. Real God Du and Yang and Real God Huan Yu saw Jian Wushuang's action and they were shocked. Especially Real God Huan Yu. It wasn't easy for her to perform Sea of Heart region and Whirling World at the same time. As for the 10 top chaotic real gods from Soaring Heaven King Palace, they were first astonished. Then, they laughed. Jian Wushuang is courting death. If the 10 of us team up, even if he really has the fighting power of one on real god ranking list, he will only be suppressed. As he wants to die, I shall grant him his wish. D. The 10 real gods had murderous intention billowing, and their cold gazes were fixed upon Jian Wushuang. The following scene made the 10 real gods starred with their eyes wide open. Jian Wushuang appeared in front of them and pointed with his right index finger. Rumble. There was boundless divine power gathering. Instantly, there was a huge hand that seemed to appear from ancient times. The huge index finger pointed with a layer of dim light as though it contained a complete reincarnation doctrine. Ancient God's fifth finger. Get through difficulty finger. The huge finger pressed over and the 10 real gods stunned. Not only them, but also real gods Duan Yang and real god Huan Yu afar, including the experts hidden in the nearby void, were all dumbfounded. Too powerful. The power contained in the finger was too powerful. It was so powerful that it exceeded the top chaotic real god level. Even on the real god ranking list, there were definitely very few who could perform an attack of such a level. The strength of the one finger had yet to explode entirely. Merely an attack could make all 10 real gods from Soaring Heaven King Palace feel like their scalps were tearing. Power, how could it be so powerful? Real god Duan Yang muttered. He didn't know that Jian Wushuang's divine power was at the level of an almighty's. He performed Ancient God's fifth finger with his divine power of an almighty level. How could it not be powerful? Hurry up. Don't just stand there. Work together to block this finger. A raging voice suddenly rang from the 10 real gods. The 10 real gods immediately came back to reality and took action one after another. As top chaotic real god, they were all experts in each corner of eternal chaotic world. However, the 10 chaotic real gods took action simultaneously and performed their killer tactics, just to block the huge finger that was attacking them. However, even though the 10 of them had joined forces, the outcome was bang! There was a ferocious noise that shook heaven and earth. The space-time exploded entirely. At the same time as the space-time exploded, poof, 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 poof. The 10 real gods spurted out a mouthful of blood and 10 figures flew back from the impact. He fought against 10 alone headden, but in the end, the 10 real gods were defeated. Just as the 10 real gods flew back from the impact, Blood Mountain Sword appeared in Jian Wushuang's hand, and there was suddenly a terrifying sword intention and murderous intention swoosh. With boundless shadows, Jian Wushuang's figure appeared before a top chaotic real god who was closest to him. Then, Blood Mountain Sword in his hand was swung out mercilessly. The sword was swung like a bolt of lightning that contained fierce divine power that an almighty had, and also with the power of reincarnation. Be careful! There was someone who shouted a reminder in time from the side. The brawny man in red armor was shocked. He immediately wielded the saber in his hand and slashed. He wanted to block Jian Wushuang's stroke. Dang! There was a low thud and the saber in the brawny man's hand flew out. The cold sword light pierced the brawny man's head. After it killed the brawny man, the cold sword light didn't grow weaker but continued to slash at the black-haired graceful lady behind. What? The black-haired graceful lady never thought that the sword light would continue to swing at her. Hence, she couldn't dodge in time. Pissed. The sword light pierced the black-haired graceful lady's body and dispersed gradually. The sight shocked everyone on the spot. It was a fierce finger earlier that suppressed 10 real gods head-on. Then, it was a close sword stroke, a casual stroke that killed 2 top chaotic real gods directly. What kind of fighting power was that? Quang! The figure moved in a ghostly fashion again. It brought along boundless shadows and appeared behind a black-haired brawny elder. The same stroke with fierce divine power, merely suppressing one with force. Although the black-haired brawny man withstood it with his all, he was killed by Jian Wushuang with one stroke. Quang! 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 His ghostly figure continued to move and he continued to swing out sword lights. Every stroke contained murderous intention. Pissed. 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 The figures were slashed or pierced one after another at an unbelievable speed. In an instant, less than a breath's time, the entire void resumed tranquility. In the dark void, Jian Wushuang stood there coldly and slowly put Blood Mountain's sword in its scabbard. Surrounding him were 9 floating cold dead bodies. Although they were dead, there was fierce divine power left in the bodies, which was the reason their bodies didn't fall below instantly. Jian Wushuang lifted his head to look in one direction. At the end of his sight, there was a black-robed old lady. The black-robed old lady was real god Xianxia from Soaring Heaven King Palace. "You are quite lucky." Jian Wushuang broke into a smile. The smile looked just like a demon's smile in real god Xia's eyes. She saw the 9 cold dead bodies floating around Jian Wushuang. There was astonishment and unprecedented glee in her eyes. She should be glad that she was lucky and fast enough in her response that she could escape in time, otherwise, she definitely would be one of the dead bodies. In the nearby void, the experts hidden in the dark became quiet. Everyone was looking at Jian Wushuang, who was standing right in the middle of the void. With his power alone, he matched evenly with 10 top chaotic real gods. Among them, there were 2 peak experts who were extremely close to real god ranking list. But in the end, in an instant, less than a breath's time, 9 out of the 10 real gods were massacred. There was only real god Xianxia, who survived through sheer luck. Astonishing, shocking. Everyone found it unbelievable. One should know just how great a formation it was with 10 top chaotic real gods joining forces. Even if it were expert on real god ranking list, those who were on higher ranking, they should be able to match evenly. However, they were fighting against Jian Wushuang and they were massacred directly. Plus, the speed of massacre was extremely fast. Jian Wushuang. Real god Duan Yang and real god Huanyu appeared in front of Jian Wushuang and the two of them were astonished. Jian Wushuang flashed a smile at the two of them. "I wanted to tell you earlier that, actually, we don't have to flee." Chapter 1686. Rage. Hearing what Jian Wushuang had said, real god Duan Yang and real god Huanyu didn't know if they should cry or laugh. If they were to know that Jian Wushuang was that powerful, they, of course, wouldn't need to flee. Most importantly, Jian Wushuang had never once showed his power. Although they heard that he had killed real god Chengqian and real god Shiji Yu, no one showed a fight after all, nor did anyone know how Jian Wushuang or what measure Jian Wushuang took to kill the 2 real gods. Hence, his power was still a mystery. Until then, when Jian Wushuang had put his true power on display. The moment he revealed it, it shocked heaven and earth. "Let's go then," Jian Wushuang said. Real god Duan Yang and real god Huanyu exchanged a look and followed Jian Wushuang as he left. From the beginning until the end, Jian Wushuang's expression had been fairly calm. To him then, the top chaotic real gods were not challenging at all. Forget if there were 10 top chaotic real gods who teamed up, even if there were 20, he could easily massacre them. He naturally wouldn't be smug with success with his battle achievements. He didn't care, but the others cared. 10 top chaotic real gods from Soaring Heaven King Palace besieged Jian Wushuang and he massacred 9 real gods directly in less than a breath's time with his power alone. The news immediately transformed into a shocking storm and swept across the entire Sanctuary Alliance. In Sanctuary Alliance, all forces and solo experts knew that Soaring Heaven King Palace and Lineage of Star were going to fight long ago. Hence, they were anticipating the result too. However, when the news about the fight spread, the experts in Sanctuary Alliance were dumbfounded. No one had expected that Jian Wushuang would be able to massacre 9 top real gods with his power alone. There was no one who expected that Jian Wushuang's power would have increased at such a large scale in merely 100 years. It was simply unbelievable. To Soaring Heaven King Palace, the bad news hit them like a thunderbolt. Their original intention in the fight had been to show dignity and serve as a deterrent force to all forces. But in the end, they had suffered such a great loss. Even though, among the 9 top chaotic real gods, there were 7 solo experts who were hired by Soaring Heaven King Palace. Soaring Heaven King Palace had lost 2 of their chaotic real gods. To Soaring Heaven King Palace, it was a great loss. On top of that, in addition to those that Jian Wushuang had killed earlier, they had suffered an even greater loss. Soaring Heaven King Palace Master was furious. "Jian Wushuang has to die. We have to split his dead body. Then, we will be able to wash away the humiliation of Soaring Heaven King Palace. Where's Han Quan? Tell him to hurry up and rush over immediately. In the core region of the 8th layer, Jian Wushuang continued to plunge forward in the void casually while real god Duan Yang and real god Huan Yu followed behind him. Real god Ling Xie continued to follow us. It seems that Soaring Heaven King Palace didn't plan to end just like that. Real god Duan Yang glanced the far void. Soaring Heaven King Palace has always been barbaric. They suffer such a great loss from me. How could they just let me off the hook? Jian Wushuang smiled. Jian Wushuang, you know that Soaring Heaven King Palace will continue to send experts to come and kill you, but you travel so slowly in the void. Even I'm wondering if you are intentionally waiting for the experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace to catch up. Real god Huan Yu suddenly looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang's actions were really strange. Ever since he had revealed himself, he had been acting strange. If the other experts were to know that Soaring Heaven King Palace, such a major force, was after them, they would definitely opt to run away at the first instant. They would seize the time to return to Lineage of Star or Thunderbolt Island. If so, no matter how capable Soaring Heaven King Palace was, they couldn't do anything. But how about Jian Wushuang? He had been walking in the core region casually and at a slow speed. As though he was taking a casual stroll in his backyard, he was not worried at all. That was, of course, abnormal. Jian Wushuang, what's going on? Real god Duan Yang looked at Jian Wushuang curiously. Jian Wushuang smiled without concealing it. I am a person who makes a clear distinction between kindnesses and wrongs. As I am already fighting against Soaring Heaven King Palace, I might as well fight till the end. Until they are willing to yield, admit defeat, or even be exterminated. Soaring Heaven King Palace wanted to show dignity through me, right? I happen to want to kill them. Hearing what Jian Wushuang had said, real god Duan Yang and real god Huan Yu couldn't help but gasp. It was true. Jian Wushuang had done it on purpose. Just then, Jian Wushuang stopped his steps. Then, he wore a strange smile on his face. Why? Real god Duan Yang looked. Hall Master Yuan sent me a message earlier that real god Han Quan has entered the 8th layer. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. Real god Han Quan? Real god Duan Yang was shocked. The 11th place on real god ranking list? Real god Huan Yu was shocked. Real god ranking list was the same as universe god ranking list. There was a total of 100 experts. They were also made of chaotic real gods. However, their fighting powers were far beyond any ordinary top chaotic real gods. It was just like universe gods on universe god ranking list. The real gods listed on real god ranking list were those on the top of the pyramid. Many experts on real god ranking list were from various forces in Sanctuary Alliance. Of course, there were many solo experts as well. As Soaring Heaven King Palace was one of the top major forces, they naturally had real gods listed on real god ranking list, and they had a total of 2, which was one more than Lineage of Star had. One of the 2 experts on real god ranking list from Soaring Heaven King Palace was real god Han Quan. He was extremely high in ranking on the real god ranking list. He was listed in the 11th place, extremely close to the top 10 super experts. One should know that Lei Chao from Lineage of Star was ranked 20 places lower in real god ranking list. Real god Han Quan was slightly stronger than Lei Chao. Real god ranking list, the higher their ranking, the scarier they are. Those in the top 10 are definitely superb existences of a monstrous level. Although they couldn't compare to almighties, they aren't far from one. Although real god Han Quan isn't in the top 10, he is merely one step away. Soaring Heaven King Palace sent him. Real god Duan Yang looked cold. Jian Wushuang, what can we do? Real god Huan Yu asked solemnly. What can we do? Jian Wushuang smiled. Then, he sat down on the ground. Don't panic. We will just wait for him to come here. What? Real god Duan Yang and real god Huan Yu were astonished. Jian Wushuang had found out that real god Han Quan was coming, but not only was he not worried, he had sat down directly and waited for his arrival. Is he trying to? Real god Duan Yang and real god Huan Yu exchanged a look. The 2 of them could guess Jian Wushuang's plan. From their viewpoint, it seemed a little mad. Chapter 1687. Arrival. At a wasteland in the core region of the 8th layer. Swoosh! A figure appeared out of thin air. It was a young man with a slightly emaciated and pale body. His body was also filled with coldness, as if he were the abysmal hell himself. After coming to the wasteland, he closed his eyes and waited quietly in his position. Half a day later, another figure descended abruptly. This person was a giant-like, purple-robed old man who was close to 3 meters tall. Real God Han Quan, have I kept you waiting for a long time? The purple-robed old man laughed heartily. Real God Han Quan, who was the young man with a body filled with coldness, opened his eyes and looked at the person who had come. I originally thought that you would need at least a few days to get here. However, you only took half a day. Seems like your murderous intent toward Jian Wushuang is no less than the soaring Heaven King palaces. HMH, everyone knows about the grudge between me and the lineage of Star. Since such an impressive genius has appeared in the lineage of Star this time around, I naturally cannot allow him to continue to grow and become the second Star Palace Master of the lineage of Star, the purple-robed old man said coldly. That Jian Wushuang is indeed extremely talented. However, it's a pity that he is too arrogant. I have gotten news that he is currently sitting down quietly somewhere in the core region, and it is obvious that he is waiting for me, Real God Han Quan said. Waiting for you? The purple-robed old man raised his eyebrows. Previously, the soaring Heaven King Palace gathered 10 top chaotic real gods, which included 2 experts who were extremely close to the real god ranking list so that they could team up and kill him. However, they were almost wiped out by him in the end. With such abilities, it should be enough for him to rank at the very front of the real god ranking list, and he is probably not that far from me. Since our abilities are quite close, Jian Wushuang is naturally not afraid of me. Real God Han Quan continued speaking. However, he will never expect that apart from me, you will also be going to kill him. If both of us were to team up, even if it were experts in the top 10 of the real god ranking list, we would still be able to kill them. Hence, this Jian Wushuang will definitely die, the purple-robed old man laughed. Even if the both of us are unable to kill him, the soaring Heaven King Palace has also prepared another trump card. With that, he will still die. Real God Han Quan's eyes were shining with a cold light. Since that's the case, let's not delay this anymore and head over there quickly, the purple-robed old man said. All right, Real God Han Quan nodded his head. After that, both of them headed for Jian Wushuang's location immediately. In the barren dark land, Jian Wushuang was sitting down quietly with his legs crossed and his eyes were closed as well. Real God Duan Yang and Real God Huan Yu stayed beside Jian Wushuang. At present, the void nearby still has many experts. All of them knew that the matter this time round would not come to an end yet. They have come. Jian Wushuang, who was sitting down on the ground with his legs crossed, opened his eyes abruptly and a shrill light flashed in his eyes. Many experts who were near the area of void also noticed the 2 figures who were speeding over from afar immediately. 2 of them? One of them is Real God Han Quan. But who is the other person? All the experts were baffled. In no time, the 2 figures which were speeding over appeared in front of them. Among them, Real God Han Quan naturally did not require much explanation. As for the other person, he was the purple-robed old man who was close to 3 meters tall. As soon as they saw the purple-robed old man, many of the experts present were shocked. The expressions of both Real God Duan Yang and Real God Huan Yu also changed greatly. Zhu Gong, monarch of Zhu Gong Holy Kingdom. It's Real God Zhu Gong. Gosh, Real God Zhu Gong has come as well? Everyone's faces were filled with astonishment. Similarly, Real God Zhu Gong was an expert of the Real God ranking list. Moreover, his ranking was higher than Real God Han Quan's. He was a super existence who was ranked 5th on the Real God ranking list. Furthermore, everyone knew that there was a huge grudge between Real God Zhu Gong and the lineage of Star, and the grudge could also be said to be unresolved without death. For example, experts of the lineage of Star dared not step into the base of Real God Zhu Gong Holy Kingdom. Of course, Real God Zhu Gong also dared not appear in the Purple Moon Sanctuary. However, for the clash this time around, the main characters were Jian Wushuang and the soaring Heaven King Palace. Hence, no one expected the soaring Heaven King Palace to actually hire Real God Zhu Gong over as well. 2 real gods with one ranked 5th and the other ranked 11th on the Real God ranking list. If they were to team up, the results would be, many eyes of sympathy looked toward Jian Wushuang. However, when Jian Wushuang saw the two experts of the real God ranking list in front of him, who was not flustered at all. Instead, he wore a smile. It will only be interesting like this. As Jian Wushuang laughed indifferently, he stood up slowly. Swoosh! Swoosh! Real God Zhu Gong and real God Han Quan appeared in front of Jian Wushuang at the same time, and they were standing less than 100 miles away from him. Ha ha! I heard a long time ago that an exceptional inverse cultivator had appeared in the lineage of Star. Today, I am finally fortunate enough to see you. Real God Zhu Gong was laughing loudly. Real God Zhu Gong, we have actually met once before, Jian Wushuang said coldly. Oh. Real God Zhu Gong frowned. Do you remember real God Long Qing and his group of people who you met tens of thousands of years ago when the Blood Demon Church was destroyed in your Zhu Gong Holy Kingdom? And that within real God Long Qing and his group of people, there was a normal person without any divine power? Jian Wushuang said. Real God Zhu Gong started to recall at once. In the next moment, his eyes turned grave. Is that the normal old man from back then? That's right. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. I am the one who hired real God Long Qing and his group of people of destruction, the Blood Demon Church. However, I did not expect the inverse cultivation test for the third heaven to descend at that point in time. Hence, I lost all my divine power and became an extremely weak white-haired old man. And at that point in time, I met you. However, it's a pity that you did not recognize me. HMH, I see. Seems like I carelessly let you off back then. However, it doesn't matter as I merely allowed you to live another tens of thousands of years longer. Today, you still have to die. Real God Zhu Gong bellowed. Real God Zhu Gong, there's no need to continue saying unnecessary things to him. Let's attack straight away and kill him. Real God Han Quan had a threatening and murderous look. All right. Real God Zhu Gong also nodded his head earnestly. At once, two frightening auras burst forth abruptly and they headed for Jian Wushuang right away. The surrounding universe became quiet instantly as well. Jian Wushuang, both real God Duan Yang and real God Huan Yu looked toward Jian Wushuang. This is not a battle that both of you can participate in. Please retreat to the side first, Jian Wushuang said apathetically. Real God Duan Yang and real God Huan Yu looked at each other and both of them felt helpless. Although both of them were top chaotic real gods, they still do not have the right to participate in a battle between experts in the real God ranking list. In particular, a battle between experts at the very front of the real God ranking list. Please be careful. After real God Duan Yang spoke, he retreated far away with real God Huan Yu. In the Dark Land, Jian Wushuang was holding his Blood Mountain sword tightly with one hand and looking at the two experts in front of him with his eyes filled with excitement.
Come.
Let me see how strong the experts ranked 5th and 11th in the real God ranking list are. Chapter 1688. 1 versus 2. The void had stiffened long ago. The experts hidden in the surroundings were holding their breath as they anticipated. Suddenly, kill! Real God Han Quan let out an angry bellow. In the instant the bellow stopped, real God Han Quan and real God Zhu Gong suddenly pounded out. Look! Real God Zhu Gong was covered in strong extermination aura, just like a demon who was going to destroy heaven and earth as he held a thick black saber in his hand. Green God extermination. Rumble. Heaven and earth shook. Real God Zhu Gong held the black saber in his hand and it was in constant miraculous movement. Every miraculous movement it made gave out a suffocating power explosion. There was a total of 15 moves and the black saber in his hand slashed 15 times as well. Jian Wushuang was still standing on the ground while the 15 earth-shattering blade lights were flying towards him. Every single one of the 15 blade lights could easily kill a top chaotic real god. Every single one of them was enough to strike fear in the experts at the surrounding of the battlefield. Jian Wushuang glared and there was a boundless divine power that soared up. He leaped and wielded Blood Mountain sword. Dang! 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 There was continuous clashing noises. Every single clash broke the void. Heaven and earth were engulfed in an extermination storm. The power dispersed after the 15 clashes while Jian Wushuang continued to stand erect in the extermination storm. Your skill with a knife is pretty good. It's a pity that you lack the strength, Jian Wushuang smiled. This boy. Real God Zhu Gong's face changed. His green god extermination, 15 continuous attacks of blade light, one was stronger than the other. When performed with full power, even the top 10 experts on the real god ranking list would find it difficult to withstand. However, Jian Wushuang took the attack so lightly and easily. D. Another cold roar suddenly rang. The void behind Jian Wushuang was pierced all of a sudden. The entire heaven and earth instantly turned murky. Among the murky heaven and earth, a dim light suddenly flashed and flew past the void. Jian Wushuang stood there and he could faintly hear tens of thousands of dragons roaring all together. At the same time, there was a terrifying chill. He was too lazy to even look to the back but slashed with his sword backhandedly. A simple stroke, but it contained the boundless divine power of an almighty. He pressed his opponent with pressure. Bong! There was a loud thud and the universe resumed normalcy. The light grew dim and real God Han Quan's body flew backwards. Such strong power. Real God Han Quan looked shocked as he bellowed, Zhu Gong, this boy is very strong, far stronger than us. But his comprehension of power of heaven isn't high. Don't compete in strength. Rely on techniques to kill him. Understand, real God Zhu Gong's gaze grew cold and the extermination aura rose again. The boundless extermination aura soared up and instantly formed a tens of thousands of jong-tall extermination beast in the void. The extermination beast roared and then opened its mouth. Pew! 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 One after another, extermination lights shot towards Jian Wushuang. The extermination lights weren't exactly powerful, but they were extremely fast. The direction which the lights were shot into were cunningly tricky too. As for real God Zhu Gong himself, he turned into a cloud of fog and hovered away. Jian Wushuang gripped Blood Mountain sword tightly with his right hand while his left hand quivered and exploded with a fierce divine power. It instantly shattered the void before him and the extermination lights that were aiming at him broke apart too. However, after they broke, the extermination beast that let out the lights instantly turned into a huge yet strange realm and expanded towards Jian Wushuang. Ha! Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. He realized that in this realm, his sight was greatly hindered. He could only see at most 10 miles surrounding him. Not only that, his soul power had been restricted in a similar fashion. Interesting, Jian Wushuang smiled. Vroom! The void shook and a stream of darkness suddenly pounded him. Simultaneously, a blade light that contained boundless extermination power appeared next to Jian Wushuang out of nowhere and slammed at Jian Wushuang's head directly. Even Jian Wushuang was shocked by the sudden slash, but he managed to respond in time. He suddenly turned and wielded Blood Mountain sword. The sword instantly dispersed the incoming sword light. But then, at his surroundings, there were suddenly countless dim lights from all directions. Boundless starlight. Real God Han Quan clenched his teeth as he stabbed with his long spear. With that one stab, the countless dim lights surrounding Jian Wushuang flew towards him like lightning. What? Jian Wushuang's face grew grave. Even if it was him, he couldn't block so many dim lights at that moment. Bang! 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 There were whistles and explosions as Jian Wushuang was buried by the dim lights. A terrifying divine power swept across and the earth shook. Swoosh! Swoosh! The two figures plunged and stopped in the void. They were real God Zhu Gong and real God Han Quan. This boy should be dead, right? Real God Zhu Gong said in a cold voice. Definitely dead. My boundless starlight performed at such an environment earlier. It was impossible for him to block them. He is definitely dead. Real God Han Quan was confident. He made the two of us team up to perform our killer techniques. Jian Wushuang died with pride. Real God Zhu Gong sneered. Just as the smiles on their faces were beginning to spread, they stiffened again. In the divine power storm before them, there was a terrifying sword shadow that suddenly swept out to drive off the divine power storm. Then, a figure reappeared before everyone again. He held his sword with one hand. The crimson robe that he was wearing turned into crimson armor that covered his body. There were a dozen faint white traces on the crimson armor, which were left by attacks from spear shadows of the boundless starlight. Although there were a dozen white traces on the crimson armor, the aura on him wasn't worn out one bit. On the contrary, it became stronger. This? Real God Zhu Gong stared. Didn't you say that this boy would definitely be dead? Why isn't he dead or his aura weakened? How is it possible? Real God Han Quan had a look of disbelief. He didn't know that Jian Wushuang was not only strong in divine power, but also his divine body. His divine power and divine body were at the level of an almighty. The earlier technique was meticulous, but the power was dispersed. Jian Wushuang was hit by the spear a dozen times, but the remaining power after being weakened by blood feather reincarnation armor wasn't enough to damage Jian Wushuang's divine body. You have displayed almost all of your techniques. It's my turn now. Chapter 1689, A Big Defeat. Now, it's my turn. Jian Wushuang's indifferent laughter reverberated across the universe, and it caused many of the experts around the battlefield to be shocked. The expressions of Real God Zhu Gong and Real God Han Quan also became unusually grave. Before fighting with Jian Wushuang, they had never expected Jian Wushuang to be so strong. One of them was ranked 11th, while the other was ranked 5th in the Real God ranking list. Even with these two super experts teaming up and unleashing many moves, they were actually unable to do anything against him in the end. Just then, under their attention, Jian Wushuang raised the Blood Mountain sword in his hands high up in the air. At the moment where the Blood Mountain sword was raised, a shocking sword essence rose high up into the sky, and an infinite amount of divine power burst forth as well. In the void, which was in complete darkness, additional crimson sword shadows appeared out of thin air. Every sword crimson shadow was extremely big, and the power they emitted was so strong that it was shocking and suffocating. At the very least, all the experts around the area who were observing the battle felt extremely threatened by the crimson sword shadows. Just then, tens of crimson sword shadows had already formed in this piece of universe. One crimson sword shadow was already enough to make top chaotic real gods feel extremely threatened. What about tens of them? The experts observing the battle had finally finished counting. There was a total of 48 crimson sword shadows. This was due to the 7-star picture which Jian Wushuang had comprehended back then. Not only did his comprehension of his doctrine improve greatly, his understanding of sword principles had also achieved a whole new level. As such, when he had unleashed the Myriad Waves move, he was naturally able to create more crimson sword shadows. After a total of 48 sword shadows had formed, they fused together at a speed that naked eyes could perceive. In just a short period of time, a new crimson sword shadow appeared in the universe. In the whole universe, only that one sword shadow remained. However, after that sword shadow appeared, everyone present became terrified. Even when Real God Zhu Gong and Real God Han Quan saw the sword shadow, they also became extremely shocked. Even I am slightly fearful of this stroke. Han Quan, both of us have to be careful, Real God Zhu Gong said in a grave voice. I know. Real God Han Quan nodded his head earnestly. It is only possible to block this stroke if both of us team up. If it were 1 against 1, you will be fine as you are strong. As for me, even if I were to not die, at the very least, I would be fatally wounded. Let's do it. Real God Zhu Gong gave a shrill cry. After that, an unprecedented destructive aura appeared from his body instantly. Similarly, Real God Han Quan looked ahead with wisdom. His body turned slightly scarlet in color, and a great amount of divine power burst forth. Divine light, great destruction. Real God Zhu Gong's body shook violently. By activating the destructive power, the thick and big saber on his hands expanded fiercely, and it covered half the void instantly. The big saber was covered in an infinite amount of destructive power, and it contained the ability to destroy everything. Kill. With a loud cry, the destructive edge of his saber, which had covered half the void, was swung out abruptly. As for Real God Han Quan, he roared continuously, and the divine power in his body was inserted into the long spear in his hands endlessly. After that, shadows of ancient giant dragons appeared behind him out of thin air. By counting them, there were at least thousands of giant dragon shadows, the power of 1,000 dragons, Dragon Star extermination. Real God Han Quan's eyes were glowing brilliantly. At that moment, the thousands of giant dragon shadows which had appeared behind him roared loudly at the same time. After that, they moved fiercely and entered the long spear in Real God Han Quan's hands instantly. Filled with the power of 1,000 dragons, the frightening spear was swung out ferociously. All their powers were world-shaking. As for many of the experts who witnessed such a scene, all of them understood that real god Zhugong and real god Han Quan had unleashed their strongest moves. They had exerted all their strength. The crimson sword shadow created by Jian Wushuang's myriad waves. The destructive edge unleashed by real god Zhugong. As well as the strongest spear stroke which contained the power of 1,000 dragons of real god Han Quan. 3 earth-shaking attacks clashed head-on with one another in a split second. Boom! The heavens fell and the earth cracked. Frightening power burst forth as if it wanted to tear everything in the universe into pieces. For example, even though the experts who were observing the battle were very far away, they could still feel the unbelievable power from the battlefield. Those top chaotic real gods were clear that if that power were to touch them slightly, they would be doomed. For such an intense battle, only super experts who stood at the top of the pyramid had the right to participate in it. As for them, they could only observe such a soul-stirring battle from afar. Swoosh! Swoosh! All of a sudden, 2 rays of glittering lights were shot out from the universe-destroying storm. It was real god Zhugong and real god Han Quan. At present, both of their bodies looked a bit miserable. Real god Zhugong was in a mess and his face looked slightly pale. As for real god Han Quan, his situation was even worse. His face was as pale as paper and there was blood at the corners of his mouth. Moreover, the aura on his body was at least 30% weaker than before. It was obvious that his injuries were not light. Swoosh! 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 Soft sounds of feet stepping on the air could be heard. Real god Zhugong and real god Han Quan then raised their heads fiercely and looked forward. All of a sudden, a passage was created from within the divine power storm which was still moving madly and a young figure walked out from it slowly. He was still carrying his sword with one hand and his aura was exceptionally strong like before. At the same time as he walked forward, a dull and slightly chilly voice could be heard in the piece of universe. Real god Zhugong, ranked 5th in the real god ranking list. Real god Han Quan, ranked 11th in the real god ranking list. I originally thought that with the both of you teaming up, both of you would be able to give me some fun. However, looking at it now, both of you are nothing much more than this. It was only after his words came out of his mouth that Jian Wushuang's face appeared in the line of vision of everyone again. Upon witnessing that, apart from the divine power storm which was still wreaking havoc, everything in the universe became silent. Complete silence. The eyes of real god Zhugong and real god Han Quan were filled with anger. However, their eyes were filled with even more fear. Even though they, 2 experts of the real god ranking list, had teamed up, they were still defeated in the end. They had lost to Jian Wushuang. With such abilities, both of you do not even have the right to get me to use my Hongjun golden sword. Jian Wushuang shook his head and his body was filled with a murderous aura. I shall stop playing with the both of you. Accept your death. Jian Wushuang's eyes shone with a harsh light. After that, he raised his right hand slowly. On his right hand, frightening divine power had gathered on his index finger a long time ago. Ancient god's 6th finger, sun corrosion finger. Rumble the universe collapsed and an ancient giant finger descended abruptly. The instant they saw the ancient giant finger, real god Zhugong's eyes shrank and all the hair on his body stood up. As for real god Han Quan, he opened his eyes wide and hopelessness appeared deep inside his eyes. Chapter 1690. Sir God Qian Lan the ancient finger descended. No matter if it was real god Zhugong or real god Han Quan, they couldn't withstand it. Just then, a dim light suddenly plunged over from the nearby void. The dim light brought about a strong power and collided with the ancient finger like lightning. Rumble. As heaven and earth quivered, the ancient finger that struck fear into every real god at the scene suddenly shattered into pieces. Ha! Jian Wushuang's gaze was fixed and looked in the direction that the dim light was shot. The experts hidden in the nearby void looked in the same direction simultaneously. In their sights, there was a grey-robed elderly that slowly appeared. The grey-robed elder with white hair and a ruddy complexion had a cold gaze that gave a dignified look. He appeared and there was a unique aura that spread around. Suddenly, he became the focus of the universe. Almighty! There were many experts that couldn't help but gasp in shock. From the unique aura and his action that broke the ancient finger that Jian Wushuang had used with a mere wave, the identity of the incomer was obvious. Looking at the incomer, real god Han Quan looked thrilled. He quickly greeted politely, "Sir God Qianlan." The grey-robed elderly nodded faintly as his figure moved over gradually. As he moved closer, Jian Wushuang's face grew solemn. Previously, no matter if it was real god Han Quan or real god Zhu Gong, he could deal with them easily and he couldn't be bothered. However, then, it was a true almighty who came. The experts hidden nearby sighed in astonishment. No one had guessed that soaring Heaven King Palace would throw in so much this round. Not only did real god Han Quan teamed up with real god Zhu Gong, he had even sent an almighty to stay in the back. Almighty was a super-existence of eternal chaotic world. In the 10 sanctuaries, if any force were to have an almighty to back them up, they would definitely be the top force. Even in Sanctuary Alliance, they would take a proper place. Soaring Heaven King Palace had very few existences like that, but they had even sent an almighty to come over personally just to take care of Jian Wushuang. The grey-robed elderly Sir God Qianlan finally appeared on the battlefield. He stood next to real god Han Quan. Han Quan is useless. Send Sir God Qianlan and to take care of this personally, real god Han Quan said softly. He knew that soaring Heaven King Palace had not only sent him to team up with real god Zhu Gong to kill Jian Wushuang, they had also prepared a backup plan. However, he didn't know what the backup plan was. Until then, he had understood that the backup plan was Sir God Qianlan. "You can't be blamed for this," Sir God Qianlan replied. His voice was calm and there was no intention of reprimand. He had come to the void long ago, but he was hidden in the dark. If an almighty were to hide themselves intentionally, even Jian Wushuang's soul power wouldn't be able to probe to find him. Jian Wushuang naturally didn't notice his arrival. In the earlier scene where real god Han Quan and real god Zhu Gong had teamed up and fought against Jian Wushuang, he had watched clearly. He knew that it wasn't real god Han Quan and real god Zhu Gong being useless, but Jian Wushuang being too powerful. From the power that Jian Wushuang had displayed earlier, his fighting power could totally be listed in the top 3 on real god ranking list. Jian Wushuang. There was a cold voice and Sir God Qianlan's murky yet cold eyes glared at him. Simultaneously, there was a boundless power that instantly pressed towards Jian Wushuang. The power was extremely strong, but Jian Wushuang's face didn't change. "It seems that it is a great honor of mine." Real god Han Quan and real god Zhu Gong, who rank among the top on real god ranking list, teamed up. "Now, an almighty has come. Soaring Heaven King Palace looks highly upon me," Jian Wushuang chuckled. His laughter was obviously in disdain. Anyone at the scene could tell. "Humph, I didn't intend to come out. However, you are behaving too recklessly. You continuously kill chaotic real gods from soaring Heaven King Palace. If we can't kill you, how can we stand on our feet in Sanctuary Alliance? So, even if I have to bear the bad name of bullying a young one, I will have to kill the outrageously arrogant man here." Sir God Qianlan's voice was loud and bright. He sounded so staunchly righteous. It was normal. An almighty was normally concerned with their names. Plus, between an almighty and a real god, the difference was too vast. Although Jian Wushuang was an inverse cultivator, he had yet to reach the level of a chaotic real god and he couldn't be compared to an almighty. If he who was an almighty were to take action at Jian Wushuang personally, he was obviously bullying the young one. It would definitely be embarrassing if it were to spread. Hence, soaring Heaven King Palace had only sent real god Han Quan and real god Zhu Gong to kill Jian Wushuang at the beginning. But then, there was no alternative. So, he revealed himself. After all, him having his reputation damaged was better than the entire soaring Heaven King Palace turning into a joke. Bye. Sir God Qianlan didn't bother to talk any more nonsense. He glared at Jian Wushuang coldly as though he was looking at a dead body. Just as he stopped speaking, rumble. Heaven and earth shook. Jian Wushuang's face grew dim and he realized that the space surrounding him was shivering vigorously. Then, hualala. Large chunks of yellowish-brown air current swept out and formed stormy seas that covered him from all directions. Jian Wushuang moved as he intended to dodge, but he realized that the yellowish-brown air current had engulfed the entire universe and there was no way he could avoid it. Then, the yellowish-brown air current crushed him with the power of universe madly. From the view of the experts from the outside world, Jian Wushuang was drowned in a yellowish-brown prison. The prison was pressuring him savagely, and there was a constant explosion from within. Sir God Qianlan stood there coldly, as his gaze was covered with a chilly gleam. As an almighty, his strength was not only in his divine power or divine body, it included his comprehension of power of Heaven Way too. An almighty's comprehension of power of Heaven Way could pass through level 7 of Doctrine Palace. He could easily kill any experts on Real God ranking list. It was also the difference between Almighty and Real God, a huge difference that couldn't be crossed. Just like his current technique, if he was fighting against Real God like Han Quan, he would have been dead long ago. However, Jian Wushuang was not someone Real God Han Quan could be compared to after all. Hong! With a vigorous explosion, the yellowish-brown prison that was continuously shrinking formed a hole out of nowhere. From the hole, there was a huge dark golden arm that extended. As the dark golden arm tore madly, the yellowish-brown prison was torn with a big hole.